The ambition was how to try to understand and to show how could an event of this social order and of this heartbreaking, I thought, and magnificent and courageous quality by women in an industry where the rate of exploitation was colossal. There hadn't been a strike in that industry since 1936. And how come 30,000 women, who of course were the second raters in the industry, it was the cutters, the men who earned the money, such as it was, had organised this unofficial struggle which lasted over 4 weeks, and that they'd reached such an extraordinary place where it was clear they were absolutely on the verge of winning. They could have won right through. How did it happen that within a few days that was turned into not a defeat but a miserable, heartbreaking compromise? And what we wanted to do was to say, this is a film, it's not a documentary. This is an enormously important social human drama, and we want to understand it, and we don't just want to rehearse the events, we want to illuminate what is the physiognomy of this process. How does it take place?
How did you set about casting it and gathering all those people together?
Well, every ingenious way we could. I mean, we ran raffles for people to come to the big marches. We enlisted the support of the then the real Leeds United, the football team, and Billy Bremner, who was then their captain, was very supportive. But I think above all, there was a base enthusiasm and sort of wonder about that event, which was not just within living memory, but it had happened 2 years before. We depended a lot upon the interest and commitment of the people of Leeds, and also the interest and commitment of all our professionals around us, who pulled up every ingenious stop to get those crowds and to tell us about people who might play parts. And we just exploited all that. It was remarkable. Of course, we had a fairish amount of money, but there was far less money than there appears to be on the screen.
We all worked very hard to also establish connections.
That's right.
In the labour movement. Yeah. In the shops, amongst the shop stewards and the works conveners. Our relations with the union were virtually non-existent. They helped us in no way whatsoever. In fact, they hated everything about us. But we did have those connections, and we also made contact with all the employers. We visited all the factories, and we got to know a lot of the, well, in particular, one particular group of women and shop stewards. And they opened every door to us. So, for example, when we did the Leeds Town Hall meeting, through the shop stewards, we put leaflets out in every single factory saying, we're going to try and restage that crucial meeting that you all did, but there's entertainment. And we got a lot of very good friends, singers and comics and distinguished people in the business to come up and appear. And it was a Sunday afternoon. It was unbelievably cold and grey. There was a bus strike. And we'd gone into the town hall on the Saturday and rigged it, and we had 50 people, including our cast, literally 50, including our extras and our cast, and we rehearsed the whole structure of that scene, and then and had it lit, and we had 3 cameras, and Peter Bartlett and Peter Edwards, who did sound, doing fantastic work, and we thought on the Sunday afternoon, well, no one will come. And we were sitting there like, it's impossible. The bus strike is raining, it's foggy, why should anybody turn out? And 2,000 people came.
And all those factory locations are real clothing places. I can't remember
thing.
How we beguiled the owners and
well, this is what I was going to ask you.
Well, that was a very interesting thing, wasn't it?
Exactly. They all complained after the event. What did you tell them to get in there?
Well, we were fairly straightforward. We said we were doing a film about the strike, and well, of course there never came any question of showing anybody a script. I mean, that was our business, not theirs. And by and large, they were cautious but reasonably welcoming. And I do remember one of the factory that we used for John Black's, without saying what it was, and going there, and they introduced us to the interior life of that factory, like that loo at the beginning where they are. That was their social centre. I mean, they showed us their husbands had made special boards that used to go on the pans so that you could get 3 women in there, not just one. And that's how they met, and they would sit on those things. And that's how they talked. I mean, you know, we had to think.
There was an issue about how they talked. They weren't too flattered about the way we were representing the quality of their language, but we took a rather covert and subversive and not too kind way of verifying that they did talk in a salty way. Actually, we did bug their benches on one occasion, and we were quite happy that the quality of their language was understated in the film.
Oh, massively. And I'd just say that the women who were quoted in the Yorkshire Post the day after the film, which of course was out to do a big hatchet job on it, actually said this film should be consigned to the nearest mine shaft. That was their line. And they quoted 3 or 4 women that we'd actually been very close to as saying they were very upset that they'd been represented as talking like that. And we were quite upset by that. And I went up to Leeds and waited outside the factory to see them. And I was very nervous, and they all came out. And when they saw me, there was a big cheer went up. And I went across and said, well, and they went, oh, it was wonderful. Oh, and they were all giving me hugs. And I said, well, what's all this stuff in the Yorkshire Post then about it's not fair, it doesn't represent you truthfully? And they said, that you don't speak like that. And they said, oh, God, that's just, you know, for my husband indoors. If he thought we talked like that, he'd break my bloody neck. That was the line. So they did. So we got to know them.
And when it was transmitted, nearly 3 years after its initial conception, it did cause a lot of controversy. As you've indicated, the women complained that they weren't as foul-mouthed as you'd presented them. The employers felt they'd been badly done by. The trade unions felt they were badly done by. The Morning Star spoke up on behalf of the Communist Party, who were also annoyed by it. And the BBC ran a special half-hour programme of Envision to bring everybody together to complain about it. I mean, how do you sort of weigh up those controversies now?
Well, I suppose it's condensed in that Envision programme, I mean, which was done from Leeds either the next night or the night of the transmission.
It was the next night.
It was the next night.
William Hardcastle.
Yeah, and we spent the day in Leeds with me trying to persuade the BBC authorities that Roy should be on the panel. And they wouldn't have Roy on the panel, they'd have me but not Roy. And I only discovered quite recently that the producer of that programme, who was a man called Will Wyatt, who later became virtually controller of BBC television, he told me just a few weeks ago that the person who said that Roy couldn't be on it was the then head of drama, a man called Sean Sutton. In other words, a rather benevolent figure, but it was Sean Sutton, probably acting for some other interest, who felt Roy was too, I don't know what, too much to be on the programme. And the employers, there was a key employer who was the managing director of Montagu Burton's, who had a mission on that live programme to, I think, denounce something about the politics, which he felt would discredit the whole thing. And the man who was anchoring that discussion, a man called William Hardcastle, now long dead, there was a moment where he was going to bring that man in. He saw him bend down and pick up a dossier, and he went to me instead. So he never heard whatever the denunciation of Montagu Burton's was on behalf of the employers, but it was going to be something.
But there was a wonderful moment, do you remember, when they were all saying, all the employees, oh, this is complete misrepresentation. Yeah. There are no sweatshops. It's not like that. That isn't how the strike was. And the first thing Hardcastle did was there were a few little tiny bits of newsreel film. And he said, well, let's run the film. And he ran the newsreel film alongside clips and saying, well,
this is
looks very familiar. And then the women who had said, well, no, we're not really like that and we don't speak like that, they suddenly, one of them went, oh, and what do you mean there are no sweatshops? And they completely turned around. It was he did a great job, I thought, William Hardcastle.
Yeah.
He did. And they did everything in their power to, discredit the film, that's the point, and denounce it and turn it into, that old thing, oh, it's a political tract, and it's all that. And you go, no, it's worse than that, I'm afraid.